Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Prose Garden Open Mic Edition, October 2024. I'm Francine Witte in New York City, and my co-host Nick Pokrass is off touring with her new book. So that's why she's not here, but I'm sure she'll be watching and seeing your lovely faces and hearing your lovely stories. And so today, as I said, we have an open mic. We have about 15 readers, and I do want to say that I was very impressed with the quality of the people who signed up to read. I'm really delighted, and I think you will be too. So I'm going to start with a piece of my own, and then I'm going to read a piece of Meg's from her new book, and then we will get started with the lineup. This is called Eve to Me, and it was published in the Vestal Review. It's crowded at the CVS. Think of toothbrushes dropping into baskets, Phil Collins music in the air. There is a bank of scanner machines at the checkout. They stopped letting humans do that here. I am waiting in line when out of nowhere, Eve shows up. Eve from the Bible. Eve from the slithery snake. I have a box of hair dye for my graying roots, hot pink nail polish for my nails. I'm trying new things since I found my husband's second phone in the bottom of his gym bag. A woman ahead of me is yelling at one of the scanners, calling it a stupid, useless turd, and can she please speak to the manager? Eve is fig leaf and no makeup, and she pulls me aside and says, "Look, I didn't have any choices, but you do. For me, there were no other fish, and if we did have Tinder, it would have been Adam, Adam, and more Adam." Eve stops to look at the scanners. She doesn't seem very interested in the woman who is now pounding a fist on the screen that seems cool and unresponsive, as if she's not even there. Instead, Eve asks me, what happened to the registers, the ones with receipts that used to curl out of them, long and sinuous? My husband doesn't look at me anymore. I don't look at me anymore. When I tell this to Eve, she says that no one looks at anyone anymore. Not really. Too many of us, and not at all what was intended. Humans just doubled and tripled and grew like a virus that not even another virus can kill off. I ask her what made her listen to a snake of all things. A snake is not like a husband that wraps itself around you like a tree, squeezes the very breath out of you, changes the color of your hair and nails. I ask her what Adam was doing while she was in the garden, and I suggest she might not have been talking to a snake if Adam had noticed her once in a while. The scanner woman is being escorted out by security, the manager pointing the way, telling the woman never to return. Eve looks troubled, as if she's been triggered by the throwing outness of all this. She says, "Look, I gotta go. Good luck with your husband." I move up to the scanner now. I wave the box of hair dye over the sensor, its red eye blinking, blinking. I look at the screen to make sure it, sees me. Some little sign that I exist, that I'm not just standing there in a line of women all through history who felt invisible, a line that stretches all the way from Eve to me, stacked one behind the other, each one wearing a touch more eyeliner, a shade deeper of lipstick than the one that came before. That was Eve to Me. And yeah, I'm just going to read one by Meg Pokrass, who's really my co-host. Oh, I'm going to just put in. All right. So this is her new book from Zank Press. And that's what Meg is touring all about right now. She's in the US, just briefly. And she, this is her newest collection. It's a collection of her some of her older books, And I think she has some new pieces in here. And this is called Stranded Sea Mammals. I'm standing on the sidewalk across the street taking a video of my mother on our roof. Since my brother's drowning last year, Mom worries about stranded sea mammals. She's better when up in her perch, binoculars dangling from her neck. I point my camera right at Mom as she flaps her arms around, spastically shouting, "Porpoises and whales!" Someone slams a window down, and the dog on our block begins to howl. Dad runs out of the house yelling, "Maria, keep it down." But she stays up there, frozen in time, squinting in the sun like a gargoyle. Mom texts me near sunset, wants to see the video. I climb up and sit next to her, hook, hook my arm around her shoulders. There's a sense of expectation around her, as if this time my movies will explain something. "How was your date, Button?" she asks. "What did you do with yourself?" "Well, Dad and I washed the dog in the tub," I report, "and we have a little bit more shopping to do." I've processed the video for her, whitewashed it so her skin appears young, but I have no idea how to get rid of the lines of confusion around her mouth or how to enhance her watery smile. "You look great here," I say. She squints at the moving images. I do look better from this angle," she whispers softly like a girl. In the video, I can actually see it's her Grand Canyon apron she's holding up for the whales and porpoises to recognize. My brother gave it to her for her birthday last year. She waves it like a flag. It's Meg Pokrass from First Law of Holes from St. Books, and you can get that on Amazon. Okay, so now we will begin our reading, and our first reader is Ron Bass. Ron, take it away.
Hi, I'm the author of two books, The Velveeta Underground, published in 2006 as part of the Erotic Authors Association's signature series. It's a collection of short stories and one-act plays. And To My 25th Century Biographers, Selected Poetry and Prose, 1970 to 2022, published in 2023 by Approximetrics Press. This one is available on Amazon, but you have to search under Ronald H. Bass to find me, otherwise I'll be buried under the algorithm. And I will time myself here. First piece is Studio 54, where are you? 5 taxis each let out one passenger in front of what they are all shocked to discover is a large building site. Till last evening, this had been the location of their beloved discotheque, Studio 54. The people, who all know each other, are gathered around a chain link fence enclosing a big hole in the ground, wailing and tailing their hair out. The group consists of Andy Warhol, Liza Minnelli, Truman Capote, Bianca Jagger, and Halston. Steve Rubel, one of the owners of Studio 54, sidles up to them. Costumed in Lou Costello drag, he grandiloquently intones, in a horrendous imitation of an Australian accent, "The dingo ate my disco." The group confers and decides to go to the Blarney Stone on 8th Avenue between 55th and 56th Street. Arriving at 8th Avenue, they all link arms and began skipping uptown. Andy exclaims, "Wow, this is a yellow brick road. Liza, why don't you call your mother and ask her to join us?" Liza shrieks back at him, "Andy, my mother is dead." 3 Vladimirs in 4 acts. For over 20 years, a hideous statue of Vladimir Lenin occupied the rooftop of the Red Square apartment building on East Houston Street. My as yet unfinished 4-act performance art piece consists of the following. Act 1, topple and remove statue of Vladimir Lenin. Act 2, hoist up and erect statue of Vladimir Putin. This is scheduled for next Friday. Act 3, topple and remove statue of Vladimir Putin. This is scheduled for the following day. Act 4, hoist up and erect statue of Vladimir Nabokov. This is scheduled for the day after that. Posterity. Cyril Coverdale is persnickety in the way he evaluates the performances of his fellow poets. In his journal, he wrote, "One should never read to an audience from a paper or a screen. poet doesn't have enough respect for a poem to commit it to memory, it should never be performed in a public setting. Cyril envisages that his primary audience will consist of readers born centuries after his own death. But just how to ensure that his writings will survive until his intended audience members are born is a problem he hasn't yet come close to solving. Walt Whitman was a phony. Billy Z. Viscus, also known as King Heroin IV in the rock world, is a mumbled word artist who performs on the poetry nod circuit. His first chapbook, Walt Whitman Was a Phony, was published when he was 15. He has all of Edna Malay's sonnets committed to memory, and he begins each reading by reciting one of them as an invocation, most often either Euclid alone has looked on beauty bare, or Oh, think not I am faithful to a vow. His commentary between poems consists of occasionally of outre descriptions of the notorious activities of the Hellfire Club at Sir Francis Dashwood's estate and the opium habits of Thomas De Quincey and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. His stage costume is usually some variant of what a gentleman in the Augustan age might have worn. Mimosa O'Toole of Mackenware created his signature outfit, a three-piece suit composed of tailcoat, waistcoat, and breeches of green silk velvet. There's one secret that Billy has never shared with anyone. He isn't a junkie, and indeed, he has never even tried heroin. At one time, he had a taste for smoking skunk weed, but he eventually gave that up because it made him too paranoid. Currently, he contents himself with rather pricey white wines imbibed in moderation, a vice he can easily afford now that he is on the fast track to being made a partner of a white shoe law firm. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ron Bass. Thank you for being here with us today in the Prose Garden. Okay, so we're going to continue. And everyone listening, I have asked all the readers to introduce themselves, give you their bio. So I'm just going to say their names. The next reader is Swetha Amit.
Thank you, Francine. Hi, everyone. My name is Swetha Amit, and I'm going to be reading from Palo Alto, California. So I recently authored 2 chapbooks. One is called Cotton Candy from the Sky by Bottle Cap Press, which is available on their website to order. The second one is called Mango Pickle in Summer, which is available on Amazon. It was published by Alien Buddha Press. Today, I'm going to be reading a flash fiction piece that was recently published in a journal called Mr. Bull. And the story is set in the backdrop of the 49ers Stadium. It's called Selling Hot Dogs. Standing outside the 49ers Stadium, I intently watch a woman selling hot dogs. She works in a cramped space. The aroma of sizzling sausages and onions fills the air, mingling with the smoke that constantly emanates from her cart. I can imagine she enjoys this, being wrapped in smoke and yelling in her loud voice. A long line of hungry football fans are impatiently waiting for their turn. Amidst the crowd, I spot a couple locked in a tight embrace, their laughter and whispers carried by the wind. 2 years ago, he and I shared a hot dog right outside the stadium. The sizzle of the sausages, the tangy smell of mustard, the warmth of the bread, and the crunch of the onions flood my mind. He gingerly wiped the remnants of mustard sauce from my lips. The brush of his cold fingers sent a shiver of delight within me. Later, we watched the 49ers win against the Rams and celebrated with beer. But now, all that remains is the echo of our laughter and the ghost of his touch. As I watched a woman efficiently making those hot dogs, collecting cash, giving back change, with a smile plastered on her face, I can't help but wish I was more like her. I would not be here, alone, battling the cold fall weather, longing for the warmth of companionship. I would not be standing here, watching those happy faces around me, experiencing the pangs of envy coil around my stomach like an ugly serpent. I would not be cursing myself for being stubborn, in wanting my space, after those long working hours at my tech job. The last straw was on that 4th of July weekend when he urged me to attend his friend's barbecue, while I preferred to retreat to the solitude of the mountains. He called me selfish and inconsiderate, and I called him insensitive, needy, and clingy. And then he walked away from me forever. Today, 15 months after our ugly episode, I am still single and laid off from my job. I wish I could turn the clock back and have another chance to redeem things. Now, he is probably somewhere in the vicinity, a tall, muscular figure with sculpted arms, wearing a red and gold 49ers jacket, sharing a steamy hot dog with mustard sauce with someone, probably more patient and effervescent. As another gust of wind blows, I imagine them locked in a passionate embrace. I bite my lip so hard it bleeds. I run my tongue over my lips. The bitter taste of regret and envy continues to swirl inside my mouth. Thank you.
Thank you, Swetha Amit. That was lovely. I invite all the readers, by the way, to keep checking the chat. There's some great comments. And, your comments, too, on everybody else's are always very welcome. I mean, you may not think your comment means that much, but it always does. You hear it, you feel it. So thank you so much, Swetha. Next, we're going to hear from Christopher Bowen.
Hello, my name is Chris Bowen. I'm a Midwestern writer from Cleveland. I have a book coming out from Severina Barva Press next year. And I also have a website. I'm going to link the website in the chat here. But I'm going to read some flash fiction today. So just give me one moment to pull that up. This is called My Son Was Taught. In the evening, I take the bed sheet off at the corners because that's how most sheets and stories are told. I take off the pleated and elastic corners where they are meant to be stretched, like after-dinner drinks and the news. When he first came out of my body, the child who would become our son tried to stretch the parts that were made even and whole in the joy of having him for us, the parts you'd grown so used to. My body stretched away from itself the way someone's eyes grow crow's feet when they smile in the face over the years. My son was taught to put the bed sheets back on and make his bed every morning because that's what happiness is. He was taught that boys are just habits and that habits are meant to be broken. That's the line I think of the most when thinking of you, when I try to fit the wrinkled sheets back together again in the morning, drinking coffee and our son sings with the birds. A crow passes by the eyelids where it places pennies for good luck over top before sending you across that river. The next one I'm going to read is We Haven't Eaten. We bought the house on a quiet street like a deep sigh. Children played kickball. There was a sign that said, slow down. She planted the rose bed first and over the years put fish bones and bone powder at each of their bases. The calcium helps them grow, she says, holding a flower by the stem so as not to prick herself. She puts down a fish, an offering, at the boneyard. We haven't eaten fish in 185 days. She puts the bones over the deep, dark mulch in early fall, and I have no idea where they ever come from. I don't love her anymore, but sometimes, when she's about to go, she kisses me on the cheek, and I miss the woman she was more than when she's even around. This next one is called Steadfast. This is from the later part of that book I talked about earlier that's coming out next year. She woke beside their bed that morning, returning to it for years after, saying, I'm tired of you doing this to yourself. Someday you will be as tired as me. And she loved him more than anyone or just as much as love could give. He later woke from the bed in a dream to describe in a way he couldn't then how cold and alone the world was without her. Though people came and went beside it, shook hands and made deals over the commodity of the soul and its wealth. They bartered and stole and cried, but never laughed, until there was nothing left to give except a waving tide of shaken alfalfa field, miles away, whispering her name over and over and over again. In your dreams you will remember me, and the tree you once knew that stood 30 yards up, some 30 yards away, some 30 years down the road, and some 30 people in my bed and in my stead. The last one I'm going to read here is called The Swell After. It's another short one. To bury the dead, first we buried past the old flowered tree orchard and the clearing there, the place we tasted clover flowers after sucking the nectar out as children. The dead whistle like wind through bone branches and trees in silence of winter if you listen hard enough. We know how to bury the ashes by the way Dad and our uncles cleared the clearing for Grandma after she'd gone that summer. How 20 years before had her husband, and two now both resting beside each other in whistling quiet reflection of the other like that forever. We know how to bury in silence and mosquitoes, to slap them off our limbs and hinds, knowing pain and grief and regret as adults, but not saying as much because of the mosquitoes. Even so, the prick is said to be equal in death, just the spot of blood and the swell after. And that concludes my reading for today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Christopher Bowen. Really nice to see you again, Chris. Chris and I were at the Kathy Fish, Nancy Stillman retreat in Grand Lake, Colorado, about 5 years ago now. Can you believe that? So nice to see you again. And yes, please check the chat. You've got some great comments there. So I want to just say that, yes, I put this out as an open mic, but I am really just so thrilled with the quality and the caliber of people who signed up. And I'm sure it's just wonderful for you to listen to them too. And not only that, we have some wonderful writers just in the audience, in the Zoom room. I want to give a special shout out to them. Bill Merkley, Claudia Montpere, Constance Malloy, Ron Bremner, Christine H. Chen, Ron Pachula, who I don't know, but welcome, and Jeff Harvey. And it's just lovely to have you here. I always say you're here because you're beautiful, and you're beautiful because you're here. And we love having you. Next, we're going to hear from Brad Rose. Oops, I meant Brad Rose. Brad Rose, take it away.
Thanks, Francine. I prefer your pronunciation to mine. I have a really long biography, so I'll just post a link to my website when I'm in Boston. And I write these days primarily prose poems, of which I'm going to read 4 today, or if you get lucky, only 3. The first one is called Paradise Mobile Home Park, Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm the kind of person water can't wait to drown. Occasionally, I mistake an inanimate object for a pet, but no harm done. Thursday, I stopped by the funeral home just briefly to heckle. At first, it was fun. Then, like a runaway dog, the fun was gone. I have no idea what the hospitality industry is. I want to get various projects off the ground. Discipline is everything. Since the hunting accident last fall, I like to keep my hands in front of me right where I can see them. My next door neighbor's wrists are tiny, thin as the bones of a sparrow. She's younger than the other occupants. Prettiest damn thing. Most days I'm relaxed. I don't have an enemy in the world. You can see for yourself. Hey, what do you say we go outside and shoot a few rounds? It'll be just like old times. Only this time, nobody will get hurt. Promise. Nobody's perfect. Like my hat, my head is bigger on the inside than the outside. Damn cowboy music. After I reprimer the doghouse and water the AstroTurf, things are going to be a lot different around here. I'll stop my internet shopping for suicide notes and try my hand at Powerball. With that $750 million prize money, Amber and I will move out of this mobile home faster than a donut on training wheels. Amber says it's not really a mobile home, it's a trailer. Bless her heart. Her brother's funeral would have been a lot prettier if the cops had used rubber bullets. I've always said you shouldn't really go looking for death, but nobody's perfect. As we bowed our sorry heads in prayer, the mosquitoes laughed like hyenas in the blood-damp air. Ants. Tiny feet scurry toward the tunnels of home, like motorists crying and driving. The sky is asleep, the day hourless. If they could speak, I'm sure they would ask, where are the bachelorettes? But they're carrying little boulders in their jaws, the way a lion carries an impala by its broken neck. I wish they would relax. They have so much potential, the unstopping frenzy of their hurried lives, as if they belong somewhere else. And the last piece is called It All Depends. Admiring the corporality of animals, we're parked in the ghost car. I have an indoor question. How many misspelled thoughts must I have anyway? There's nothing more beautiful than wanting the impossible to be true, especially when it is. Time passes faster in the mountains than by the sea. Like a drowned body, the sky's blue prairie floats overhead, wind light as confetti. Maybe we should take a drive to the beach, go for a swim. I don't want to give away the ending, but I can tell you it's a beauty. No one attends their own funeral, know what I'm saying? By the way, that outfit looks good on you, although it all depends on how you look at it. Thank you.
It was wonderful, Brad Rose. Next, we're going to hear from Elissa Field.
Hey all, I'll put the some people like to read the story along with you, so I'm just going to put the link to the story I'm going to read in the chat in case you want to.
Oh, I also have captions on, just as FYI.
You have what?
The captions on
Yeah,
at the
perfect.
bottom. So
Okay.
once a minute.
So my name is Elissa Field. I'm a submissions editor with Smoke Long Quarterly. I have published flash fiction in a number of different magazines, and I also write novels. So at the moment, I've got a chapbook out on submission, and I'm querying for agents. I'm really easy to find on social media, and all my links are on my website at elissalorenfield.com. So let me go ahead and read this one. The story I'm going to read was one of my favorites that I published this year. It's called What She Really Wants to Say About Kill Devil Hills, and it was published at Bowen magazine. They'd been to Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina, and months later, Alice would catch herself wanting to work it into conversation. Kill Devil Hills. Find herself brain drafting a post for her socials. Is there any cooler name for a place than Kill Devil Hills? Photos and polls drive engagement, don't they? Get you seen, get you love. What was it? 5 miles of Saharan-scale dunes along the Carolina seashore. The dunes from which the Wright brothers launched their first successful flight. So hot and vast, signs warned at the tourist parking, you have no way of expecting just how daunting and dangerous this walk will be. Yet they had walked out on that trail, hadn't they? Young married, their 2 toddlers in tow, posed and snapped the boys, hiking Kill Devil Hills. The sound of it. Wasn't a brag exactly. Not the way lovies on Facebook only posted when they had wealth to show, smiles to prove how good they were doing, only the best minutes of the best hours of the best days, the one day of the year their hair looked smooth. Okay, sir, it's a brag to share the moment Alice caught the wild horses coming over the dune. Oh my God, can you even believe? Perfectly framed action shot, actually in focus. Could count the teeth on the stallion biting the other one's neck, glazed in edges of apricot sunset. For fuck's sake, life should all be that kind of brag. The miracles. But she hadn't paid for the trip. A tag-along on her mother-in-law's annual week at the beach, which was in fact a tag-along on her mother-in-law's sister's annual month at the beach. Poor relation of the poor relation. Blatantly true, the invite only came because Alice now possessed the mother-in-law's grandsons who were yet of the cute age when they could be posed in madras and seaside colors with pails to shape sandcastles. Be told when to bob about on inflatables at the same pace as grandmommy. investment a grandmommy remembered while she was still young. Photos done for everyone's Christmas cards, ready for graduation collages a decade and more on, evidence it had all gone well. But what she wants to post, what no one in the family wants aired, is the sound of those words. Kill Devil Hills. Capture the shine on the teeth. Not the soft worry of toddler cheeks gone too red in the sun, no one venturing off to snorkel down to sharks who slept at the bottom of the reef. No one yet to notice there was a reef. No one yet to notice sharks watched them there, adorable feeties bobbing and dangling at the top of the waves. But the pictures no one takes. The brother-in-law shagging a one-night stand in the condo stairwell. The brown tiki god shot glasses from too many shots at Mama Kwan's. The sand and sweat while fucking aggravation of all the years to come. Oh, sorry. Things that'll be thrown, nights that won't be slept, vows that might be broken, teeth bared. But that is the miracle, isn't it? The money shot, the killer, the devil, the love that still gets us through.
Thank you, Elissa. That was really beautiful. And I just want to say again, and Elissa, I apologize for stepping on your introduction there, but I should have said this at the beginning. I do have the captions activated, so you can, if you just go to like show captions, feel free, because I find it very helpful to read along. So I appreciate that you did that, Elissa. But they're there, and someone commented how nice it is to hear you read, Elissa. So I totally agree with that. It's nice to read a piece, and you hear it in your head, but to hear the author read it is just such a special treat. It adds another dimension to it. So thank you, Elissa Field. Thank you for being here with us. The next reader is Benjamin Niespodziany.
Hey, everyone. Thanks, Francine, for hosting this today. Yeah, my name is Ben Niespodziany. I'm a Chicago-based writer. I have one book of microfictions called Cardboard Clouds, out now with X-Ray Books, and I have a collection of poems out with OK Donkey Press. I will be reading 3 microfictions today. All 3 of them are about 200 words each, so kind of short and sweet. The first one is called Night Moves, and it's about Bob Seger. Night Moves. I win the sweepstakes. I'm meeting Bob Seger for an evening beer, for a cigar. My father is so proud. My father is not allowed to attend. This sweepstakes is only for me. So my father texts me throughout, asking for updates and anecdotes. What's he like? My father types. Long hair or short? Bob goes through phases. My father is so jealous of this. I tell Bob upon meeting him, oh God, Bob laughs. I'm no boss. You're no boss, I agree. And my father texts me, he's no boss, but he's Seger. You're no boss, I tell Bob, but you're Bob. But I'm no boss, he repeats. He looks mournful. He sings to himself. I reach for my phone to take a picture of Bob, but Bob says we should take a picture together. Let's ask a passerby, Bob says. Better angle, he says, because we're no angels. We're no angels, I agree. A passerby takes our picture. We smile like old friends. We send multiple photos to my father in his car just a few blocks away, idling quietly, listening to Bob, then the boss, and then Bob, and then boss. This next one is called The Author, and it was recently rejected over at Smokelong, which is my white whale. I'll keep trying until I die. One day. The Author. The acclaimed author sends his agent a one-word sentence. It's a novel, he tells her. She puts down her drink. And what, she asks, do you call this novel? It doesn't have a title, he says. It's untitled. So it's just one word, she asks. You can see for yourself, the author replies. The agent opens her thesaurus and offers the author some alternate words, but the author is stuck in his ways. The editor, upon receiving the novel, offers the same, but the author is stuck in his ways. The advance is less substantial, which is understandable, but the sales exceed the author's 3 previous books combined. At literary events, he breathes for some time before reading this single word and allowing the word to linger before taking questions and stepping off stage. Newspapers and journals have polarizing viewpoints. Podcasts and blogs have prolonged thoughts. To take a picture of this single word is considered copyright. To share the word in public is a hurried way to be sued. The author is rumored to be hard at work on his sequel. Critics and fans think it will be one word like before. Others think two. Others are reading something completely different. It's not a book for everyone. Nothing ever is. And then this last piece I have is kind of riffing off of Grimm's fairy tales and folklore. I have these ongoing pieces of flash that I'm kind of putting together into a novella. Woodsman cuts down a tree and found a door. It was old, worn, rusty, chained up, padlocked. He had no tools to make it open, so he hunted for someone who could. Plenty of people passed dear Woodsman, but never did he open his mouth. The key was the color of the wood. The dead tree was too long. It seemed to be a certain species that withered and simmered when cut. These trees, Woodsman thought, only a few still remained. Woodsman cut down another tree and found a door inside the tree. When he opened the door, he found a hallway where there rested fox bones from a past fable atop a table made of oak. He turned and started to walk into more story, thinking every hallway is a curtain, every door is before. The echo felt like a meadow. A rat ran into its death. Woodsman cut down another tree and found a door that led inside of a house. Inside the house, he found a woman. She was wearing a dress with hair attached to the back. The dress is rarely worn, the woman said. It is a deeply impractical dress, she said. This I know, but it enhances my experience of being alone. When the woman saw Woodsman turning to leave, she asked him to take her with him. Woodsman refused. He couldn't remove another from the doors of the trees, for it was already night. He was right. It was already night. Thank you all so much.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ben Niespodziany. Thank you for joining us in the Prose Garden. Next, we'll hear from Anne Anthony.
Okay. Okay, I got it going. Hold on a second. I lost my reading. All right. Hi, I'm Anne Anthony. I live in North Carolina with Ron Pachala, who is in the audience. Hi, Ron. And I work with the Lit Journal, Does It Have Pockets? The story I'll be reading was published earlier this year in Flash Boulevard. Thank you again, Francine. And is part of my work in progress, a flash novella about two sisters in midlife thrown together after growing apart. The younger sister is a therapist. When Mona's therapist ghosts her. My therapist canceled today's appointment with a forum email, not bothering to type in my name, just dear client. What the hell? And I did my assigned work, created an issues list during the 2 weeks between appointments, like she told me, like a good girl. My sister's upcoming breast reduction surgery, DD to be. My husband's infidelity, maybe. My boss's body odor, God, he stinks. And then there's Stella, my best friend since second grade, and her sudden proclamation of her love for me. I mean, I have a lot to unpack. Mrs. O'Reilly must have known she couldn't make this session for days, likely weeks, and put off canceling until 33 minutes before. I check her secure email app, the one she'd set up to ensure confidentiality, you know, the whole doctor-client confidentiality thing, and a bundle of error codes display with each refresh. 429, too many requests. 408, request timeout. 404, not found. 410, gone. Gone? Gone where? Something must be wrong with her server. I call her private line, the number she gave me for extreme emergencies only, when I begged her, after meeting with her weekly for 3 straight years, for an after-hours number, until I wore her down the same way I could wear Daddy down. And she'd scribbled the number on the back of her business card, making me promise to keep it to myself. But it doesn't ring. Goes right to where her voice mailbox should be, but isn't. It's dead air. Is she fucking ghosting me? I fling my phone into the wall across the room, grab my car keys, Forget I'm wearing pajamas. Today sets an all-time record of 8 days without showering. And back down the driveway, nearly run over Fluffy, the neighbor's Persian cat, drive the 10 miles of pothole-laden back streets. God, she knows how much I hate highways. And I pull into the strip mall parking lot near the frozen yogurt pump and slam the front of my car into a shopping cart. As I race toward her rented office space, my breasts will sway. I'd forgotten to strap on a bra, so I wrap the sides of my sweater to secure them as best I can and push the number 2 elevator button. I'm humming, "I am woman, hear me roar," before breaking into song, singing, no, shouting the lyrics down the long corridor to her office. I've got my fist in the air, ready to pound her door when I hear noises inside. Loud, rakish cries. Ugly crying, the kind my mouth makes. Did she give my time slot to someone else? I lower my arm, put my ear to the door and listen. My fist loosens. I can't, Bob. I can't. It's my therapist, not a client. Something smashes. She's thrown something to the floor, the wall, hopefully that god-awful Dalai Lama wall hanging behind her desk. I step back, wait for the crying to die down before leaning against the door. Nose blowing, chair rolling back. Finally, nothing. I turn to leave, hoping to escape before she discovers me, but the silence breaks with a shriek. Just fucking make the arrangements. I can't. Not for Mama. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Anne. And Anthony, wonderful. Yeah, we're about halfway through now, and the first half has been just a wonderful words flying, like beautiful deliveries and language flying around the Zoom room, and the next half is just as good. So next we're going to hear from Mileva Anastasiadou. Mileva, I believe she's here. If not, we'll hear from her afterwards. We'll move on to Tina Berry.
Hello, hi, everyone.
Thank you, Tina, for jumping in there.
I'm really enjoying these readings. Thank you. I am a poet and short fiction writer. I live in the Hudson Valley of New York. I have a new book out. This is my third collection, I Tell Henrietta. It's a collaboration between myself and the visual artist, Kristin Flynn, who created the cover, this gorgeous cover, and several really beautiful images inside the book that are inspired by the writing. So I'm going to start with Before Nanny Cams. I told Henrietta that because I had no father, I needed to see how a man and a woman lived together, signs of joined lives. And I wasn't interested in the obvious, shoes left at the door, his and her mugs, the commingling of laundry. When I babysat, I'd slide open medicine cabinets, twist the cap off cologne bottles in faux wooden cloaks, inhale the limey scent. Electric razors moaned when I pressed their switches. Women's bedside tables were diaries of contradictions. Beside a rosary, the flesh-colored orb of a diaphragm, primed for business in its pink plastic case. Beneath a dog-eared copy of the Scarsdale diet, a slice of chocolate-iced yellow cake wrapped in wax paper. Most men's drawers held only what they needed, boxes of Trojans, proving sex happened beneath the silky quilted bedspread, reading glasses for the books they never finished, yellowed receipts never filed. The most conservative dad, always in a dark, boxy suit and unfashionable thick glasses, who offered only a single nod of greeting, surprised me. Eating chocolate chip cookies baked by his wife at their Formica kitchen table, I perused his Playboy, collecting crumbs in its centerfold. Then, in a stack of photos I found shoved in the back of his drawer, his 2 toddler daughters, messy-haired and giggling, his petite wife engulfed in a wedding gown, and between 2 images of Mats, himself as a child, front tooth missing, gangly body constrained in a stiff communion suit. This is Telling Lies. After my father left, I told the babysitter that I bit my nails because my mother refused to cut them. I told my mother that the school secretary was retiring and she should apply for the job. The secretary told my mother that at 40, she was nowhere near retirement age. I told my art teacher, Phil Stein, aka El Steino, that I knew Picasso and that he admired my work. And I told my class that my father wouldn't be attending parent-teacher night because he was training tigers with his circus troupe in Florida. My teacher peered over her glasses, frowned. She had met my father, an insurance agent who wore suits, not silver tights, and carried a briefcase, not a whip. My teacher called that night. After a few minutes, I heard the phone slam, braced myself for my mother's howl. I expected some kind of punishment, maybe a TV curfew, lights out after Bonanza, into bed before the Ed Sullivan Show. Instead, she asked, "Why are you telling stories about Dad?" I shrugged. I had grown tired of saying he's away on business. And I'll read one short one. One more short one. It's called Lily World. 2 hours from suburbia to heaven, gasoline stinks the bus terminal. Cabbies swerve, flip each other off, horns, painful music. Mother's cheeks pinken. The museum's revolving door wishes us into marble and glass. Crowds of women in wide wool skirts, scarlet lipstick, cashmere. And then Monet's lilies, ponds of water lilies, whole conventions of lilies, frills of lavender, shimmering sage, and so many blues, more blues than an ocean or a sky. Pistils exhaling, petals unfurling, a floral strip tease. We try for words, only make sound, ooh and We don't believe in God. Can't tell you what spiritual means, but that hushed room, those flowers. Thank you.
Oh, lovely, Tina. Tina Barry. Next, Cole Beauchamp.
Hi, thanks for arranging tonight, Francine. I've been loving these tales. I'm Cole Beauchamp. I'm a flash writer based in London. Just became a contributing editor for New Flash Fiction Review. I grew up in the Midwest, and the story I'm going to read was inspired by the long road trips I used to take with my dad. It was shortlisted for the 2024 Oxford Flash Fiction Prize, and it'll be in the anthology that they're publishing next week. It's June in Kentucky, and Bob's trucking through on I-65. He rolls down the window, and the night air hustles in. A heady mix of manure and tobacco that fits the song on the radio. Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys. Waylon and Willie sound good, even rattling out of the Max Podunk speakers. Bob chomps on some Twizzlers, swigs A&W through a paper straw that's turned to mush. Maisie. The clapboard house he built from the foundation up. The smell of mint and basil she grew from seed scenting their bedroom. Her gasp when their rhythm hits just right. The catch in her voice when he leaves. Don't you miss me? She's always on him now to take that job at Pete's. Says she wants to start a family. The tires of his semi thrum on the asphalt. Now Loretta Lynn is on, with Don't Come Home a Drinkin'. He sees his father, the corded muscles of his neck. His mother wailing, why, why? After his dad left, Bob had years of clanking her empties into the garbage cans, while she cursed out his string of women, though that wasn't what she said. 2 syllables. Hooers. Maisie doesn't get it. Bob's always alone. Don't matter if he's at the garage or 1,000 miles away. He can't give her what she wants. But staying away don't mean playing away. He's not his dad. Up ahead, a sign for Bert's Travel Plaza. Diesel about 10 cents a gallon cheaper than he's seen since Birmingham. The engine whines as he downshifts. The air brakes whistle. He fills up and takes a stroll through the truck stop to stretch his legs. Strip lighting bounces off 2-liter bottles of Coke, bags of cheese popcorn, and potato chips, an entire aisle of beer. T-shirts, stuffed animals, fridge magnets that say Bourbon, Kentucky horsepower, an adult section with blow-up dolls and porn. He catches a whiff of steak and eggs from the 24-hour restaurant. The 30-something waitress has frizzy hair and a warm smile. Well, hey, handsome. She blows a pink bubble and snaps it back. He laughs, hey yourself. At this time of night, flirting helps pass the time. He eyes the board. Steak any good? She winks. Mooing just yesterday. Bob sits at the counter and polishes off the $8.99 steak and egg special. The waitress Michelle tells him about her 12-year-old son, her divorce from a man sneakier than a junkyard dog, not a red cent of alimony. I see you wear a ring. Her voice is wistful as she studies his hand. Lucky girl, having a man who knows how to listen. He shifts on his stool. You like country music? I like Taylor Swift. She ain't country. Michelle crosses her arms. True or false, that little girl started her career in Nashville. Did she? Bob frowns. He's sure that blonde Maine girl is a pop star. All legs and lip gloss. Yeah, give her some credit. She's been writing her own songs since she was 14. Bob purses his lips. There you go. A few truckers come in, arguing about whether the Chiefs or Bears will win the game, looking for him to join in. But Bob just smiles and looks away. A bone-thin girl hovers in the doorway, shivering in a miniskirt and low-cut top. Her face looks 10 years older than her body. Bob looks away. Lot lizards are an occupational hazard, selling or hitching, sometimes thieving. Michelle motions the girl into a booth and pours her a cup of coffee. When she's back, Bob says, doesn't that make it worse, giving them something for nothing? Michelle shakes her head. Little enough that girl's been given. The Bears fan calls out, hey, hon, come on over here. Got something you'll like. He leans back and rubs his crotch. Mating and sex, predator and prey. Bob's glad his wife is tucked up at home. He wonders what it's like to be a 9-to-5 guy, to coach Little League and go to church on Sundays. He shakes his head. What he can take pride in is providing for Maisie, keeping his word, being faithful. He hears that catch in Maisie's voice again and stands to settle the bill. Well, you keep safe then. He gives Michelle a 20, tells her to keep the change. You sure? She squints up at him, the fluorescent lights showing smudged mascara, lipstick that's bled into the creases of her lips. Little enough you've been given, I bet. Michelle reaches up and pulls him forward. Her lips are soft on his cheek. Bless you. She smells of fried food and coffee, but her hair holds the scent of strawberries. For an awful moment, Bob feels his cock stiffen. He wants to wrap his fingers in her berry-scented hair, bury her imperfections and sorrow into her forgiving body. He mumbles goodbye, afraid to meet her eyes in case the answer is yes. Outside, the air stinks of petroleum and exhaust. He shakes himself like a dog that's been in the river too long. All these hours on the road, the truckers and that prostitute, it's all messing with him. He's not that kind of man. Maisie. Her coppery hair against the pillow, her green eyes boring into his, arms wrapped around his back. Maisie. His pulse steadies. Climbing up the metal stairs into the cab, he grimaces at the old Whopper wrappers, empty Twizzler and Milk Dud packets, flat pop. He gathers it up and chucks it into a nearby garbage can. Back in the driver's seat, he waits for the glow plugs. Maybe Maisie's right. Maybe he won't know until he tries. The orange of the glow plug light fades. New air in, old air out. The compression of pistons, heat. That spark of ignition, and he's off. He swings the Mac out of the parking lot, joins I-65 North. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad. That garage? The look on Maisie's face might just be worth it.
Wonderful, Cole.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here in the Prose Garden and reading such wonderful work. Next, we're going to hear from John Riley.
Hi, Francine. Thanks for putting this on and for inviting me. My name's John Riley. I live in Greensboro, North Carolina, actually. Somebody else is from North Carolina. A few months back, I published this. It's called 10,000 Words. It's a volume of 100 word prose poems, which was a challenge. It's available through Escott Books, so it's also on Amazon. And I usually write poetry, actually. I have a poem in the current issue of Eclectica and another one in the current issue of Hudson Review. So I've been trying to escape poetry some, but I don't, it's hardly difficult. I was going to read 3 quick pieces, but if I run over, please do not hesitate to yell at me. The first one, all 3 are unpublished. The first one's called The Flying Man Trapped in the Mobile Siege Tower. The flying man lives in a wooden cage built on top of a mobile siege tower and is rolled from battle to battle. His job is to watch the suffering inside the walls of surrounded villages and report on the misery's progress to the king's men that gather each night around the siege tower's staked wheels. The king thinks the flying man brings his army good fortune, and seldom does a day go by that he does not stop his horse and offer the flying man his best wishes. In the midst of a siege, when attacks are mounted during the day, the flying man lies coiled inches above the cage floor. At night, he listens to the men around the campfire sing songs of home, lonely songs that make the flying man happy he has his own place. When the bird and arrows that sing overhead bury themselves in the cage walls, he quenches the flames with buckets of water lifted with strong ropes through a small hole in the cage floor. At night, he eats freshly killed meat scorched over campfires. The soldier who fills his supper basket, a boy too young to shave, includes a slice of hard bread with his meal and sometimes a skein of sharp wine. The end of a siege is always the same. The villagers behind the surrounded walls begin to keen and to sob, and a few days later, he hears the gravedigger's shovels scrape earth and rock hour after hour. After the siege walls come down, or the village's gates are forced open and the massacre is ended, the army in the siege tower moves on. The flying man loves these days of travel, when he can squint between the cage walls and watch swallows and crows and sometimes an eagle float and dip over the treetops, while the men and horses stay the tower as it rolls along the dusty roads. There is always a new battle waiting and new innocents to die, but the flying man's heart is never divided. Once he flew wherever he wanted, but now the flying man knows freedom is living in his cage atop the mobile siege tower. He loves his captors, the king and his soldiers that make sure he is fed and offer him gratitude for the good luck he brings. The flying man has long forgotten the days he lived outside his cage. Today, he lives only for the sweet smell of burning flesh, the exquisite snick of a slicing blade, the taste of boiling siege oil that clings to his tongue. Okay. The second one is called Firing Squad. We have reached the dreaded moment. The moment when the always hungry lion will welcome us with his open mouth and show us his sharp teeth. The moment we were all hoping would never happen as we were making our decision this morning, standing on the leadward side of the dune that lines our section of the coastline. Circled in the ocean wind, we decided to not accept the share of the pirate's bounty offered by our guide. Now, a mere 2 hours later, we can't remember the exact points we made in our argument against taking the bounty, have only vague recollections of thinking that perhaps it was stolen by unknown pirates, and not accepting the portion was the morally correct decision. Now that we are here before the lion's cage, we have come to understand, without a needed discussion, that what we thought was a moral choice was a refusal to accept responsibility. The amount of the bounty allocated to us had been decided by those with a wider view of the conditions. Perhaps the right choice had been to take the bounty and distribute it to those who need it most. It mattered less where the bounty had come from than where it could go. Although we understand our error, the guide is now facing his own decision. He will either turn us away from the sharp-toothed lion staring into our eyes and lead us back to the windswept coast, or he will open the cage and wave us inside. Did our failure to convince him of our wisdom mean we are not worth more investment? That it is time for the guide to cut his losses? This is the question in the air. To see a question clearly and have none of the devices necessary to answer it is more than frustration. It is torture. And then, when I close my eyes and try to control my breathing, I see the answer. Perhaps it was the force of the unanswerable question that drove me to the answer. It is not a new answer, but is one that may save the group if presented in time. I need to shout it out. Shouting it out may reassure our guide enough for him to turn us away from the lion. But when I try to shout, I have no voice. Straining and straining fails, and I sink to the ground, defeated. Is this our lesson's final betrayal, or have I decided on self-destruction? Again, another hellish question in the afternoon light. And as I wait, mute but not deaf, I feel my eyes widen like the eyes of a captive pushed against a wall, waiting there for the firing squad's first command. And the last one is shorter. It's called You Are Not a Prince. My presence there was suffered by the men who held me by the arms. The back of their hands were covered with thick, dark hair, and I could feel the calluses of their fingers, but could not see their faces. They stood a few inches behind and lifted me up and down by the shoulders. My feet were either waving above the soil or lightly resting on the fine dirt inside the corral. My eyes could only sway over the audience seated in bleachers. It was intended that I be proud of the size of the crowd I had drawn, and I remembered to do so. The crowd was large, but no one seemed happy. I didn't see a smile. I did not know why they were determined to maintain their stoic quiet. I wasn't a spy slipping in from an enemy tribe, or an alien from lands too distant for the audience to know existed. I was chosen for this honor, but knew nothing of the honor bestowed. I lived in this town since birth, only once stepping out of the posted border to bring back the pet dog that ran away from one of my overseers on the town's council. As I grew older, I noticed the other children in the town had two people who cared for them, but my life was guided by the council of 5 men who only had numbers for names. I was scolded relentlessly for crossing the city limits to one time, but my plea for the safety of the dog eventually worked me back into the council's good graces. It wasn't until I started noticing how the light glowed on the charm of the girl's face, or the loveliness of an elegant neck, that I was quarantined in a windowless room. The men beside me in the corral did not make a sound as they lifted and dropped me as though I was the churner in an old butter maker. Then they lifted me higher than before and began walking toward the opposite side of the corral. My feet dangled foolishly as we moved closer to the spectators who had begun to rise from their seats and move down from the stands. And my eyes, as though they were controlled by a mind I had no knowledge of, focused intently on the worn wood of the corral fence, until all I could see were the gathered townspeople, all with a look of precise intent in their eyes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. John Riley. Thank you for being here with us in the Prose Garden. Next, we'll hear from Lynn Goodwin.
I remembered to unmute. I'm Lynn Goodwin. I'm the owner of an evening called Writer Advice. We happen to be running a microfiction contest right now. Love the talent in this room. Thank you for putting this together, Francine. And I would encourage you to take a look. I will post the link later. Now I'm going to move to a different flower bed in this prose garden because I recently published a book called Disrupted. I didn't publish it. Olympia Publishers published it. And this is YA. And I decided about 15 minutes ago that I was going to read the first chapter of this instead of what I planned. It's quite short. So pretend I'm 16 and the earth pounded like a jackhammer. I dropped my phone and it bounced on the floor of the main hall at San Remus High. As I grabbed it, the floor slammed into my feet again. That jackhammer was working overtime. "Get in the doorway," a booming voice called. I knew that, so I was surprised when the current student council president came running toward me. The girl he was with said, "Chill, it's nothing. A trembler, not an earthquake." I must have looked worse than I thought because she stared for a minute before she said, "You okay?" I nodded. "You're Sandy Mason, right?" the student council president asked. "That's me." "I remember the assembly where you spoke about your brother last spring." I nodded. Here he was in the job my brother, Bry, had 2 years ago, and I couldn't help wondering if Bry wanted to tell me something or warn me about something or someone. He used to send me encouraging messages after he died. At least I thought he did. And I kind of hoped he was trying to get my attention now. "Don't worry. Small quakes just relieve the tension between the plates. The big one's further away than ever. And it seems like it's over now." He pushed the hall door open for his girlfriend. "Thanks," I called after him. My dad had told Brian me that factoid years ago. I grabbed my books and stuffed them in my worn backpack, then slammed the door, which made as much noise as the under-earth pounding. I was already 5 minutes late for rehearsal. Not good. Ms. G expected her actors to be prompt, and that went double for the stage manager, me. The quake spooked me. So did the student council president. From the back, he looked a lot like Bry. But Bry went to Afghanistan, and the body parts they could find came back in a box.
How powerful. Thank you so much, Lynn Goodwin.
Thank you.
Next, Kalliopy Paleos.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kalliopy Paleos, writing in New Jersey, right outside of New York, where I teach French in high school, as Francine can relate to the whole high school universe. I've published a few pieces in Ergon, which is a magazine of Greek American arts and letters. I've had the wonderful privilege of having a few pieces taken by the amazing Flash Boulevard. Very, very thrilled. And the pieces I'm going to read for you today are from the Ekphrastic Review, sorry. And I think maybe one that hasn't been published. Otherwise, I have no books or anything because I am a recovering fraidy cat. So let's see, first piece. is from the Pokrass Review, and so it's based on a painting by the amazing Brett Armory, which depicts like a very small, sort of shadowy luncheonette. I'll say I know Buddy, and they'll let me in. Finally lost Nick. My bet, he's down Tennessee. Always finds bus fare to go crying to his mama, Nikki does. I'm meeting Buddy, I'll say. Or maybe I'm waiting for Buddy. Maybe put my jacket down first. No, just order. Don't give him time to think. Coke and steak and fries, real hot. Got some money today, yes, sir. I'll pay for my sizzling plate, scoop up that change real easy, like I do it every day, and slip my ass into a seat, casual. Use that little wooden pick like a silver fork, like Buddy's on his way any second. Maybe even strike up a conversation. They're not bad guys. They're gonna let me in, I know it, and I am A-okay today. Second piece, also from the Pokrass Review. Just in time for Halloween, we've got a little ghost story here. This is called Ruby and Lily. Oh, sweet Lily. Mama named us after beautiful things. Mama even had a diamond ring, too. Lily wants that ring, but I say it's mine. Yesterday, I hid it in the china closet. Nobody else around here got a china closet or a house as fine. I was with her when she found it, close by, just like a draft from a window. She even shivered. That time she found it by the sink, I let her keep it a few days. And wasn't she charming, holding up her hand to see it shimmer, smoothing the wallpaper, singing, I see you, pretty flowers, I see you, pretty birds. I sang too, but she thought it was the train rushing by on the other side of Saunders's field. Next time I'll put that ring under the sofa. She likes finding it down there, down on all fours, yelping like sweet old Brandy used to. Daddy got that ring off a lady's hand he almost tread on over in Berlin. Something soft under my boot, he'd say. And I looked down and it was just winking up at me. So now it's your mama's, and you girls just gonna have to fight over it when we're gone. And let's see, this last piece, like I said, hasn't been placed anywhere. Full moon mother-daughter night. Your smile sifts back into the skin of your face as you turn away, scooping the ice cream. A smile receding like a lost city, covered by sheets of sand the wind has pulled across the yellow lights of the kitchen. My smile fades as well, sinking back down into a hard blue mussel shell under the mud, which I enjoy more than the happiness face I have just displayed. I can't know which of your childhood memories you will retain, and though I prefer to be in the wet darkness of myself, you are nevertheless here. It will not be right for you to glimpse the creatures of my labyrinths, my consolations or disappointments. You wander the path from our kitchen to start the movie, unraveling your braids as you go. All I know about the streets of your hidden city is that in time they will be forested with new-grown plants and soaring birds. This is often referred to as growing up, and such I suppose it is. In each swirl of new dirt is hidden a night of yours I will never see. The uncurling of each new leaf will unroll, a running of your feet from station to station, and I won't know if you have arrived on time or safely. The pop, pop, popcorn jars my underwater nerves. You call for me again. I've been stalling. I fill the bowl and follow in your footsteps to blankets and pillows, where we pet the dog and lie in the dark, and we laugh at the shapes and words from the screen. As we fall asleep under the window, a glowing eel circles back and forth between my rib cage and yours. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Kalliopy Paleos. It was beautiful. Next, Rina Palumbo.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me to the party. I live in Southern California. I am editor-in-chief of Third Street Review. We are open next month if anyone's interested in that. Currently working on a hybrid memoir, but I also write flash fiction, creative nonfiction, as well as prose poetry. Most recent work is in Super Present, but I also have work in the Hopkins Review, Milk Candy, Identity Theory, and other places. The first thing I would like to read is called How to Build a Rocket, and it's from Bending Genres. 10. Rocket science is still rocket science, so make sure you know the specifics of the rocket you want to build. This has gotten easier because there is so much information out there. Not so much online, but libraries are free and open anytime, anywhere. You can take out stacks of books and specialized peer-reviewed journals and read and take notes and take more notes until you have A, design specs, and B, a materials list. 9. Tools may be a problem, but like always, improvise. You may have something that can cut and weld and combine and discombobulate, so look around in places that may have tools. Best if you can walk or hike there. But if you've hoarded enough gasoline to take longer excursions and there is something specific you need, go there and take it. 8. Raw materials for your rocket may be easier to procure than tools to build it because there's so much stuff around. Do you know how much you can scavenge and scrounge? Of course you do, because you've been doing it for years by digging through piles of rubbish. Get creative. Gathering everything you need on your materials list may take time, but solid effort and grit will get you there. 7. Rockets are big, but you have lots of space. Just make sure your work area is clean and clear. 6. Start building your rocket from the inside out. All the electronics, life support, inertial guidance systems, propulsion and steering, and the other myriad details that you have in your design specs need to be constructed and put together and then combined with all the different parts of the design so that the whole thing works together to launch you into orbit. This will take time, so be patient. 5. Fuel. This one is tricky. Older rockets use solid boosters, but that stuff isn't around anymore. Hence, you need to find the perfect blend of liquid fuel, which will be the most dangerous part of this and require lots of testing. But you have time for experiments, so keep trying different combinations until you find one that will give you the lift you need. 4. Shell. You will need 3 layers. The outer one will burn off, the middle will deflect solar radiation and protect you from micrometeorites, and the inner skin keeps you inside. Again, work from the inside out. This means that the outer hull will most likely not be aesthetically pleasing, but anyone watching you will only see it burning away and shards of it falling back to Earth. 3. Suit up. Okay, so you took this from the Smithsonian, but it's not like Neil Armstrong will ever use it again, so what's the harm? 2. Take only what you need. 1. Blast off. 0. The only view is in front. There was never anything behind you. And the second piece I'd like to share is called Old Things, and it's from the Stone Coast Review. I see myself walking on hard-packed snow from the fields and towards the river. It is overcast and just before sunset, only shades of gray above and white below. I see myself walking in a black coat with the hood on and holding something in my hands. This feels like something rare, a glimpse maybe of something perfect, or just an image, or an embellishment of a memory because I know that place, those fields and that river. I know that as you walk towards the rocky shoreline, you have to cross an asphalt highway and walk through a small graveyard. It is fenced around now, but not then, and with a zinc plaque added at some point when it was decided that that was the right thing to do. I don't know the words, names, dates, or the history of how this tiny, now sacred place came to be. But I know that Aboriginal people lived here. Some of their bodies now lie here, and we know some things about them, but not everything. When I was very young, the older man who lived next door would take long walks over his fields, and I would sometimes join him. He used to tell me stories. Once he described how abjectly poor the Wyandot were, selling whatever they could to get money for food. I remember asking why they didn't grow things, and he told me they didn't know how. This seemed strange, looking at all the lush rows of corn and soybeans that seemed to erupt with ease. Why didn't they hunt, I asked, thinking about the pheasants and the deer that shotguns took down every autumn. Or fish, I would ask. That is easy to do. Now, I know there is a long, complex, yet simple story that he could have told me then, but instead, he told me a lie. He told me that they had forgotten how to do things like farm and hunt and fish. On top of this lie, he told me a truth. In the end, the only things they had left were the small wooden shacks they lived in and the clothes they wore, and only the old ones stayed behind until the people were gone. But what could they sell then if they had nothing? I asked. Old things, was all he had told me. In the irrigation ditches that surrounded the fields, you could dig in the fine salty earth and find the bleached bones of small animals, usually rabbits and birds, pieces of smooth-edged pottery, ochre and sienna, glass shards, brown, gray, and the palest blue, metal, which I thought was silver but was probably nickel or tin, and stone pieces that felt like they had been part of something else. I thought these were old things, and so I kept them in a box. When I was old, I thought I could sell them too, like the people in the stories. I walk in that gray and silent moment, carrying something towards the river, but it's getting darker, and the coal now feels as heavy as the box I am holding. I look down at it, and it looks bigger or smaller and not the same as I remember. I wonder if I should stop in the graveyard, but I don't. I step through the bleached white fingers of polished stone, words eroded into hints of letters, and step onto the rocky beach. The current keeps the river from freezing over. The shards of ice break off and pile up again as they move silently and inexorably downstream to the ocean. The movement is hypnotic, with slow accumulation and quick escape. I have stopped walking. I have dropped the box, but maybe I was never holding it because only cold remains. Thank you.
Thank you, Rina Palumbo. Next, Kristin Tenor.
Hello, thanks so much, Francine. It's been so wonderful to listen to everybody today. As Francine said, my name is Kristin Tenor. I write flash fiction and short stories. I'm also a contributing editor at Story. Today I'm going to share the title story of my upcoming chapbook, which is called This Is How They Mourned. The chapbook will be published by 30 West Publishing House and will be released this Friday coming up, so very exciting. You can get more information about the chapbook or about my work at my website, which I'm sharing now in the chat. This is how they mourn. Our family will always remember the summer I turned 15 as the drowning summer. First, my cousin Joey, then my brother Danny. One accidental, one trying to be the hero. After the funeral, Nana and the aunties hover over the stove to fry kielbasas and sauerkraut, their tatted handkerchiefs tucked into the waistbands of their dark skirts. The men gather around the heavy wooden table to play sheep's head and pass around a bottle of Jameson's, so as Papa Frank says, they can appropriately toast their dead. Cousins steal cookies and lemon bars dusted with confectioner's sugar from the doily-lined tray on the sideboard before escaping to the backyard to swap snippets of overheard gossip collected behind thin-papered walls and heating vents. It's as though they all expect Joey and Danny to burst through the screen door any moment, both of them laughing, grabbing over one another for food, sustenance. This is how they mourn. I stand next to the dress and the kitten heels that pinch my pinky toes until they become raw blisters. Neighbors and guests crowd into the front hallway with roasters of German potato salad and steaming casseroles covered with aluminum foil. The women from St. John's Ladies Auxiliary come bearing an array of Jell-O salads, their tears wobbling back and forth as they are passed from hand to hand. One woman with bright red lipstick pats my cheek as she presents my mother with an oblong platter with a gelatinous lime green fish at its center. The pears and mandarin oranges submerged within its translucent layers remind me of boys floating in the St. Croix River. Mother, the ever-gracious host, pastes on a smile and thanks the ladies for thinking of our family in our time of need. Although just last night I saw her slip out of the house in her nightgown to lie on the damp grass under the full moon, her arms and legs tucked tight against her chest like the baby sparrow I once found buried inside its brown speckled shell, even though part of it had already cracked and fallen away. The aroma of burning cabbage and sickly sweet pastries deep fried in oil caused my stomach to flip over and over again. I excuse myself and hide behind the locked bathroom door. A slight breeze billows the sheer curtains covering the lower half of the window by the toilet. The fresh air not enough to erase the heaviness clinging to every surface. I take off my shoes and lie fully clothed in the empty clawfoot tub. The porcelain cools my skin, the nape of my neck. Outside the window, I hear my cousin Greta tell the others Danny was lucky he didn't live to see the sorrow he had caused Auntie Miriam and Uncle George, since he was the one who dared Joey to swim toward the rip current in the first place. My other cousin Bethany says she heard the boys were trying to impress a girl. Neither is true. Laughter erupts from the kitchen, the card game becoming more raucous with each drink poured. I close my eyes and imagine what it must be like to have waves pound against flesh, the taste of seaweed and fish swish through your mouth as you gasp for air, until the only thing left is the final echo of your pulse completing the circuit. Ear, head, heart, and all goes so utterly black. Joey, Danny, and I are on the beach. The boys run towards the water's edge, pushing one another into the waves. They strip off their shirts and dive in, their heads bobbing up and down as they swim farther and farther out. I sit on a piece of forgotten driftwood, sifting through the smooth, round stones stacked at my feet. I balance one stone on top of the other, building a tiny temple until it topples over and I start again. Seagulls dip and screech overhead. The sun is bright, blinding. I never hear them call my name. Someone pounds on the bathroom door, jostling the handle. Anyone in here? I stand in front of the mirror. I put on a fresh coat of lip gloss, straighten my dress, my hair. An accordion begins to play. Nana announces the cake has been cut. Heavy hands slap cards against the wooden table. More sausages hit the frying pan, and my feet are stuck in sand. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristin Tenor. And I'm going to close by reading Mileva Anastasiadou was trying to get in. I kept seeing her name as coming in, but she because of internet screw-ups and all that, which happens. So I said, send me your story that you were going to read. So I'm going to read her story. Bear with me because I've never read it before and I'm reading it on my phone. So it's called We Scream Over Rooftops. Nobody hears, so we yell at each other and we make noise and we're loud and we fight when we drive, when we go shopping, when we eat dinner, and we speak out loud. We speak all the time. We speak nonsense sometimes. Still nobody hears because our parents don't know how to listen, and our teachers and our doctors and our leaders are trained to mute us, and friends are too busy, and strangers don't care, and the rich are unbothered. Nobody hears us, so we speak through our eyes. We speak and we hyperventilate. We speak through panic attacks and meltdowns and psychotic breakdowns. But still they ignore us like they ignore wars and pandemics and climate change and awkward truths, and they send us to therapy if we get too loud, because we are expected to ignore everything that should be forgotten. Nobody hears because our words don't matter, and sometimes we even forget them. But history hasn't ended, so we scream over rooftops. We scream all the time. We never get tired, and we never give up, and we never run out of air, words, hope. That's Mileva Anastasiadou. Okay, well, we've come to the close of what I think is a very successful open mic, and I think we're definitely going to be doing this again in the Prose Garden. I'm just so delighted with all of the readings we heard, prose poetry and YA and of course Flash, and just so much gorgeous language. I'm just so struck by everything that I heard today. So I want to thank our readers, Ron Bass, Swetha Amit, Christopher Bowen, Brad Rose, Elissa Field, Benjamin Niespodziany, Anne Anthony, Mileva Anastasiadou, who I just read for, Tina Barry, Cole Beauchamp, John Riley, B. Lynn Goodwin, Kalliopy Paleos, Rina Palumbo, Kristin Tenor, and all the people in the Zoom room. And thank you so much for listening. If you're listening to this on YouTube, this will be posted as a recording later on. And we'll see you again next month, the Prose Garden. We can stick around in the Zoom room once I turn off the recording. But for those of you not here, drive safely and have a great evening. Good night.